So I've been replaying Wind Waker, and I've been having a few thoughts about the game. 3 specific thoughts in this order. Number 1, holy crap, this game is good. This is like the best game ever made. Oh my goodness. Number 2, how did people not like this when it came out? I don't understand why people were so upset when this came out. This is the greatest thing ever. Number 3, does anybody even understand Zelda? Does anybody even get what Zelda's all about? Spoiler alert. Me. I do. I understand Zelda better than anybody. Nobody else gets it. I would even argue that Nintendo and Aonuma himself doesn't quite get what Zelda's all about, especially considering this. I don't like this at all. I know what you're thinking. Are you going to tell me what Zelda's all about then? Yes. But first, we've got to go all the way back to Ocarina of Time. And we have to clarify a couple things. Ocarina of Time is like the worst game ever made. I'm sorry that you had to hear it from me. Don't believe me? Watch this YouTube video. See? I told you it was bad. Egoraptor made this video talking about Ocarina of Time and its flaws, and he does a great job of talking about like how Ocarina of Time really hasn't actually aged that well, especially a lot of the gameplay elements. Just very, very not very good considering what games are nowadays. Again, I agree with like most of what he says, but he doesn't talk very much about the story and about the feel of the game, and the way that the game is like actually the best game ever is something that he doesn't talk about very much in that video actually, which is kind of surprising because Ocarina of Time is like the best game ever made. It is not good because the gameplay itself is good. The combat in Ocarina of Time is very it's something. It's something. So what makes Ocarina of Time so good? You play as the green guy with the sword. That's what Zelda's all about, is playing as the green guy with the sword. And you think that I'm doing a bit right now, but it's actually not. Most people can agree that Ocarina of Time is like the definitive Zelda game. If people don't like Wind Waker, but they like Twilight Princess, if people don't like Twilight Princess, but they like Wind Waker, if people don't like either of those games, and heaven forbid anybody talk about Skyward Sword, everybody can at least agree that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are pretty much masterpieces. And it's because you play as the green guy and you have a sword. I don't know how to break it down more than that, but that's really the whole essence of that game. So this is kind of some basic Zelda history, and there's this awesome video about like the Twilight Princess development, whatever, like what led to Twilight Princess. Great video that talks about this in more detail. But it's important to understand the history of everything that followed after Ocarina of Time that led to Skyward Sword, that then led to Breath of the Wild. It's important that let's get the whole kind of eagle-eye view, give you the cliff notes real fast. Ocarina of Time comes out, the GameCube is in development, it's announced, and then there's this video. Everybody knows this story already. It's like better graphics, Link versus Ganon and Ocarina of Time, and it looks a little darker, it looks a little edgy, it looks really, really cool, and everybody loses their minds. Unbeknownst to everybody, Aonuma, the guy who is now the director of Zelda after Majora's Mask was the greatest thing ever, he looks at it and says, "This is not Zelda. This is not Zelda at all." Aonuma, Zelda is right there. I can see him. He's right there. But it doesn't matter what he thinks, because he's going to go on to make Wind Waker, which is the best game ever made. Oh my gosh, this game is really good, despite the fact that it's the worst game ever made, and it has a lot of flaws and really sucks. But that doesn't matter, because, again, and I can't say this enough, in Wind Waker, you play as, say it with me now, the green guy, and you have a sword. The sword! Look at the sword! Yeah, it's a sword! And the sword is awesome in this game, dude. The combat in Ocarina of Time is like, it's kind of like that. But then you go to Wind Waker and it's like the greatest thing ever. Every time you hit somebody, then it plays a little musical cue that goes in with the music. There's like the cool little parry moves that you can do. There's just so much style to it. The enemies look fantastic and the graphics look fantastic and the music just feels good. It's the best part of the game. Oh man. Another thing I love about the combat as well is that it's like more of a reward. It's not like constant combat throughout the entire game. It's more like you play through some of the puzzles and some of the dungeon, you get through some of the story, and then there are little combat scenarios where like in the Dragon Roost Island dungeon, then you'll fight a couple of moblins, and later it's like a couple of more little guys, and it's just a bunch of little smaller things. It's not constant. And then you get to Hyrule Castle, and there's like 50 billion big dudes, and it's so much. It's so cool. Very good combat in this Wind Waker game, but the combat doesn't matter because it's all about the sword and the green guy. So naturally, this being like my favorite game ever made, people were furious. Everyone was like, this isn't Zelda. This isn't Zelda. What do you mean this isn't Zelda? There's the green guy with the sword. He's right there. He's right there on the front of the game. And then it's especially interesting when Aonuma, 2 seconds before that, he was like, this video, this isn't Zelda, and now people are saying this isn't Zelda. It's like, what is Zelda all about? What is it all about? Nintendo would then kind of backpedal a little bit, and they made Twilight Princess, and everybody was so happy with Twilight Princess when it was announced. Everybody lost their freaking minds. Nintendo didn't even know what was going on with the game. They didn't know what it was actually going to be. They simply knew it's going to be that darker, grittier Zelda game that everybody wanted. And then it came out, and everybody was so happy until they weren't anymore. And then it was kind of regarded as one of the more mid games of all time. What is going on with this franchise? I thought this is what we wanted, right? This is what we want. It's too dark now? It's too dark and serious and creepy for you? That's what's going on? You didn't like the creepy clown dude? Or the cutscene where people were killing themselves over the Triforce? You didn't like that? That's what you asked for. You're saying that this isn't Zelda? And I played Twilight Princess. And I've got to say, it's like the greatest game ever made of all time. Green guy and the sword, that's a good formula for success right there with me. You play the green guy with the sword. I can't get enough of that green guy. Zelda! So at this point, Ocarina of Time is still the definitive Zelda game. And then Wind Waker, and then Twilight Princess. So like, where's the happy medium here? Nintendo's gonna try and find the happy medium, I think, between these two extremes. People were pissed. Why were they pissed? Because in Skyward Sword, the open world was replaced with an open world that then led into more linear sections of the game that led into dungeons. Kind of like Ocarina of Time, how it had a Hyrule field and then it had like little branch pathways that led out of Hyrule that went into areas where you would do a little quest and help some people, and then they would let you into the dungeon and then you would help the people some more. And people were pissed about this because it's not Zelda. Zelda's not about doing little linear trials. It's about the open world. What open world? Zelda's got a great open world. Like, Ocarina of Time has a great open world, but it's not the game's strong suit, really. You hit a boulder, and then you go in the hole, and the most exciting thing you're going to find in there is a cow. I love Ocarina of Time's open world, but don't try and tell me that the game is bad simply because it's more linear. I think people end up blaming the linearity of Skyward Sword on the fact that it was also accompanied by the dowsing mechanic, which is where your sword becomes a radar. You get into a new area and the game tells you to look for certain things. And then it doesn't tell you to look for those things. It tells you exactly where those things are. So you just like you go into first person and you're like, and that's the game. I feel like Skyward Sword plays a lot better when you just completely remove the dowsing entirely and you treat the level design like it's Mario Odyssey. Like the Mario Odyssey games really kind of just, or the Mario Odyssey and the Donkey Kong Bonanza, Donkey Kong Bonanza is Mario Odyssey 2. Changed my mind. The level design is kind of built like Mario Odyssey in the sense that like it's this big open place and you have a bunch of objectives that take you to certain points, but you can do them really in any way that you want and in a way that inspires you to look around and turn over rocks and look at stuff, but there's no need for any of that because of the dowsing. I think that the dowsing is really what takes people out of that game. That and the motion controls was a huge barrier for a lot of people. But also the green guy with the sword is in here, and also Demise was in this game, and Demise is really cool. Oh, he's only in the end of the game. Shut up! Shut up! He's the coolest part of the end of the game, so shut up. And also give him a little and Zelda, Skyward Sword, Zelda's like, oh, the entire story and the soundtrack. I thought the Skyward Sword was a great way to hit off the 25th anniversary of Zelda. Any Skyward Sword haters can leave. At this point, though, what's insane is that every single one of these games came out and was hated by the community so badly. And yet every single one of them has been remastered because we love them. So what's the big idea? Every single game comes out and it gets hated. But then when it comes out, then the game that we hated becomes a masterpiece. What's Nintendo to do? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to take a 6-year hiatus. Not going to make another Zelda game for 6 years. And when they do, they're going to redo the entire formula. Okay. Okay. Well, you know. Well, you know me. You know me. As long as I get to play with the green guy as a sword, right? To be completely fair, I actually really like Link's redesign. However, you're no longer playing as the green guy with the sword. You're playing as the green guy with like a hammer, and that's cool. I like Breath of the Wild a lot, and I like that it kind of breaks the conventional mold of Zelda, and it does a lot of different things. Tears of the Kingdom, on the other hand, is like unforgivable. Let's talk about Breath of the Wild for a second. Actually, let's not. The reason that all of the games up until Breath of the Wild are so special is because you're playing as the green guy with the sword, but that's where it starts, and that's like the little seed that then grows the Zelda tree. In any of those games, you start out as the green guy with the sword, especially Wind Waker is such a great example. You start out the game and you're the green guy with the sword, and you are going to save your sister, who for whatever reason was kidnapped and taken to whatever place, the Foreskin Fortress or whatever. Who cares? All that I'm thinking of in the beginning of Wind Waker is I am on a noble quest to save my sister, and that's so cool. But then as the game goes on, the game starts to tell you more about like some ancient hero, some ancient war, some whatever the Triforce is, the some princess, some ancient evil Ganondorf, whatever. Okay, so Ganondorf's the guy that's got my sister, whatever. Okay, well we'll just kill him. Turns out he's like an eternal evil thing that's been around for millennia. Okay, it just expands into this giant iceberg of like there's so much lore in this game. Wind Waker is about Ganondorf who has been defeated. This is the version of Ganondorf that was like, he got his butt kicked after he got into the Sacred Realm and he was sealed away. He's a more humbled version of Ganondorf, which is so cool that we get to see that. And then Twilight Princess does the same thing where it's like, I am going to save my friends. Turns out I'm the chosen hero of the goddess. Whoop-de-frickin-do. And then the Ganondorf in that game is really fun, even though you only get to see him for a little bit. That's kind of a fumble, honestly. Same with Zant. They fumbled Zant really hard in that game. I love Twilight Princess, but holy crap, did they fumble some of the characters. Thank goodness for the Twilight Princess manga, because that makes it all better. And if you haven't read the manga, you really should. It's really good. Ganondorf in Twilight Princess, though, is like still very cocky. He didn't get the experience that Wind Waker Ganondorf got. He just was like, yeah, I'm really angry because I didn't even get my chance to enact my evil plan. I got thrown into the garbage first. like it's just these little things that you learn as you play the game, and again you realize that this one little story of this guy trying to do some whatever noble little quest is actually foreordained by the gods and is linked to this whole giant turmoil between good and evil, and it's so cool. Jump to Breath of the Wild, and the plot of Breath of the Wild is not the story of Breath of the Wild. That's something we got to make very clear right off the get-go. The plot and the story are two different things. The plot is the plot of like events that leads up to whatever. The story is what actually happens in the game, okay? The plot of Breath of the Wild is that 100 years ago, the chosen hero and the princess were preparing for the return of Calamity Ganon, who is again this eternal threat that's been constantly threatening Hyrule because Demise cursed the goddess's children in the sky, whatever, who cares. They're preparing for the return of Ganon when all of a sudden they find these robots in the ground and they're like, we're going to use these robots to kill the freaking Ganondorf when he gets here. It's going to be awesome. And then Ganondorf is like, I had the same idea actually. So then he destroys Hyrule. He's like, oh my gosh, I've got these robots now, and he destroys Hyrule, and it's awesome. It's not awesome. Actually, it's really bad. But at the end of this little war here, all of our heroes are left in a state of just misery and dread. Link is defeated and he's on the verge of dying, and Zelda, she doesn't know what she's gonna do. She just has to walk over to Ganon's castle and be like, I guess I'm just gonna keep you here for as long as I can. And then 100 years later, Link wakes up not realizing who he is, but he's just simply told, you need to go and take care of that over there. That thingy over there, that's your responsibility now, bub. Happy birthday. Alright, you've got me sold. You've got me sold on this. This is cool stuff. But again, the plot, that's the plot of Breath of the Wild. The story of Breath of the Wild is Link dicks around in Hyrule for 100+ hours until he's got all the Korok seeds, maybe, or whenever he feels like it, then he'll go take care of that. Doesn't really matter. I mean, again, Breath of the Wild is a fun game, but the story doesn't capture that same element of this is part of something greater. It does a little bit, like it talks about it. Obviously, Calamity Ganon and like the hero and Zelda, like they're all there. It's the elements of those, but it doesn't have that same like the seed that then sprouts into the tree type of storytelling that the other Zelda games did so well. And again, Tears of the Kingdom is an abomination. I don't care about this goat guy and his wife. I don't care that this is technically like new Hyrule. I don't care, and the game doesn't care either. The game, like they've made it canon. They're like, this is like a completely separate timeline that we're doing right now, and so it's not connected to any of like that awesome stuff that we were talking about earlier. This is like whatever, you know. It's new Hyrule set in the distant future. Why should I care if the game doesn't care? Tears of the Kingdom 2 is no longer about being the guy with the sword, because it's about being the guy with, like, you glue your weapons together, and that's, like, a really small, like, it's a personal gripe, because, again, for me, it's about having the sword. If I'm, like, gluing, like, a spike ball onto a baseball bat, that's cool, but I'm not the hero with the sword anymore. I'm some dude running around with some magic powers, gluing stuff together, making cars and X-Wings. And again, that's an awesome game, and I'm really glad that people liked Tears of the Kingdom. I'm glad that it did well. It's not Zelda to me, so I can't like really relate to that. And there's a lot of people that also relate to that. The big criticism and the big concern that I have is that people say that the new Zelda games lack the old Zelda magic because they don't have the same soundtracks or the same dungeons or the aesthetic. And that's really just not, I don't think that that's where it is either. I don't think that those people understand where that Zelda magic actually came from. It was the guy with the sword. That's it. I've been thinking about this a lot too. I think that they could make a Zelda game about anything. Well, not like about anything. I think that they could make a Zelda game really kind of any way, as long as it had those elements that I've talked about. Green dude with the sword and the whole eternal lore thing, awesome lore story stuff. It doesn't have to be an open world RPG. I would really love to see them make like maybe a more linear story based game. Maybe you don't even play as Link. What really pisses me off is that they've been doing this whole Hyrule Warriors thing, and that is so stupid. When the first Hyrule Warriors came out, I was really excited because I was like, oh, this marks Nintendo saying, we're gonna make other stuff with Zelda. It's no longer just an open world game. And then they only made Hyrule Warriors. And mowing down thousands of guys at a time with insane magic powers is not Zelda either. There's the Age of Imprisonment game that's supposedly going to be canon, and they have to specify that because Age of Calamity was not canon. It was a whole different spin-off thing. It started out like, this is canon, and then it was like, just kidding, it's about time travel and stuff. It doesn't matter, the story doesn't matter. And then Age of Imprisonment, they're like, it's definitely canon. This guy, trust me, it's definitely going to be canon this time. But it doesn't matter if it's canon because, number one, I don't care about the story. I don't care about the goat guy. And number two, that's not Zelda. That's not Zelda right there. Just like the old Zelda games, and especially just playing Wind Waker, everything about it just like, it just makes you feel like there's some, you're just caught up in some eternal storm. Anyways, there's a lot of other things that I'm definitely forgetting to talk about. I've been thinking about making this video for like a week now, and I've just had like all these ideas rolling around in my brain, and I wanted to talk about it, and I didn't write any of it down. I just kind of winged this, so we'll see how this turns out. I'm really curious to see what people will have to say about this. I'm not trying to farm activity in the comments, but I would really, if you're like typing out a giant novel long comment, hit send because I want to read it. I really love like seeing discourse about this type of thing because Zelda means so many different things to so many different people. That it means a lot to me, so I'd love to talk about it some more. Anyways, in the meantime, I don't know. Donkey Kong has been really good.